Alright, let's talk about Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. So, yeah, this movie has always had some very mixed reviews, and, especially now, people will inevitably compare it to the Peter Jackson movies, and, for good reason, because, yeah, the Peter Jackson movies are masterpieces. They're like some of the greatest movies ever made. But yeah, this one's not nearly as excellent, or you know, it's definitely not at that level, but there's still a fair bit to appreciate in this version. Um, so yeah, um, yeah, get ready to make comparisons. Well, I don't necessarily have to make comparisons, but, well, inevitably I will surely make some comparisons. But anyway, so I guess I don't need to bother covering the story. Bilbo has, or not Bilbo, Frodo, you know, well, Bilbo passes the ring down to Frodo, and then he disappears, and Frodo has to carry the ring and bring it to Mordor and throw it into Mount Doom, and that's the very basic story. Yeah, that's Lord of the Rings. The end. But obviously, a big part of Lord of the Rings is all the characters. So I guess I'll get into them real quick. I guess first of all, Frodo. So in terms of like comparing performances, Elijah Wood obviously was much, or he had much more of an identity. He put a lot more into it, but the voice actor for Frodo in this movie did a good. Overall, I think pretty much all of the voice actors in this movie did a relatively solid job. I can't really name any truly weak links. I mean, Sam was kind of obnoxious, but I've heard worse. But I'll get to him. Back to Frodo. So, one notable difference. One thing that always, bugged the hell out of me, or, it was always kind of a pet peeve when watching the Peter Jackson movies, is how, almost helpless Frodo was in those movies. I mean, you'd think he'd at least try to defend himself a little bit, and yeah, he does do a bit of that in this movie. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I definitely say Elijah Wood was, the better performance. But yeah, I still liked this version of Frodo overall, and I like how this one's tougher, and I hear it is more true to the book that he at least tries to defend himself. Let's see. So yeah, otherwise the character's nothing like. Well, the character on his own, it's mostly about his adventure that makes him so memorable. Otherwise, he's kind of the everyman. But yeah, then we have Sam, who, is definitely a far cry from the Jackson version. Yeah, from, what's his name? What was it? Sean Astin. Yeah, I mean, that guy managed to make a pudgy sidekick character actually kind of dignified, whereas this Sam is ugly. Yeah, they definitely drew him like super ugly, and yeah, he's quite obnoxious. Well, I mean, people mostly point to the scene where he goes, "Ooh, hooray!" Yeah, that's obnoxious, but I mean, I've definitely seen worse bumbling sidekick characters, but yeah, he definitely is much less dignified than the Jackson version. Let's see. Gandalf was good. I don't think there was anything that like made him really stand out in comparison with Ian McKellen, but still, they overall did a good job with his performance and his presence and everything. Aragorn looks like a Native American. That's pretty notable thing that many people have pointed out, that he looks like a Native American. But on the flip side, he's voiced by John Hurt, who's really helps make the character. Yeah, I think if you want a character to sound powerful, give him the voice of John Hurt, basically. So yeah, but I think it's kind of tough comparing. It's tough comparing him with the what's his name, Viggo Mortensen version. I don't know. I mean, it's not exactly fair comparing the characters in this movie to the ones in the Jackson movie, because those ones had a lot more time to be fleshed out. They had like they had pretty much over 9 hours total to flesh out all these characters, and yeah. But yeah, in this one we don't get to know them quite as well, but a lot of them do have a great presence, and yeah, Aragorn is a fine example of that. Yeah, especially with the voice of John Hurt. He just looks a little weird, is all. But and then we have Boromir, Legolas, Gimli. They were good. Nothing really stood out about them compared to the guys in the other movie. But by the way, Legolas is voiced by C-3PO himself, Anthony Daniels. A much more dignified performance than 3PO, but yeah, it's kind of interesting hearing him voice someone other than 3PO, and less comic relief-ish. But yeah, let's see, Merry and Pippin, they were okay, I think. At the very least, you kind of get their the gist of what their characters are. Like Mary's kind of the straight man, whereas Pippin, he kind of seems like the naive child of the group. I mean, in the Jackson movie, it kind of looks like Frodo's the youngest of the four, but yeah, here it looks like Pippin is is the kid of the group. And yeah, I think they do play that up. Let's see. I think most of the other characters can pretty much be summed up as alright, but, not nearly as memorable as the Jackson version. Gollum, Saruman, let's see. Yeah, pretty much all of them. But yeah, still, overall, the performers did a solid job with what they were given. Just like the other Lord of the Rings, but yeah, even with what little they were given in this version, yeah, they did a solid job. So yeah, overall, great performances. So the animation, well, Ralph Bakshi, I think, has a special talent with, stylish animation, and, here he managed to give a lot of the characters some, human movements. Although it can also get weird at times, specifically when he uses rotoscoping. In one shot they'll be animated, and then suddenly you'll see some actor, yeah, some rotoscoped actor. Um, they had a woman playing the rotoscoped Frodo. Um, I mean, he still had the same voice actor. I'm saying his body actor. Um, let's see. I will point out it is interesting how again, this is reviewing this right after Watership Down. It is interesting that two of the performers from that movie return in this one, John Hurt and Michael Graham Cox. And what's more, they kind of have similar dynamics where Hurt plays the kind of leader type, whereas Cox plays the aggressive, tough guy. So yeah, just interesting pointing that out. Anyway, I feel I am kind of rambling, but let's see. Well, the characters are distinguishable enough. I mean, it does help that, like, even during scenes where these 9 guys are traveling along, you might hear one of their voices, and at the very least, you can instantly recognize who's talking. And, aside from just the performers, just the character that shows through them. So yeah, that's kind of an accomplishment there. There's a nice, atmosphere to the movie. It's dark and foreboding. Um, there's some good action scenes. Let's see. Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, I was talking about the animation. I am going off on tangents here, but it does get. Well, I did talk a little bit about the rotoscoping, but it does get. Like, at times it's interesting to look at. At other times it's like super jarring and just out of place. Like when you see an animated character standing next to a rotoscoped character sometimes, and yeah, it just doesn't look right. But I don't know. It works in places. I know Bakshi experimented with rotoscoping in Wizards, but yeah, here it's pretty overdone, and it does lead to some pretty awkward moments. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of awkward stuff in this. But at the very least, because it's such a departure from Bakshi's previous movies, I will admit it's probably my favorite movie of his so far. Um, yeah, I'm kind of biased. I'm not really a fan of his adult works, but yeah, but either way, I'm trying to think of what other little things to point out. I know the story well enough. How long have I been going on? Almost 15 minutes. Well, I don't want this review to be like to be like the Peter Jackson movies, or even this movie for that matter, since it is pretty long by animated movie standards. Um, but, uh, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's some other things that I felt obliged to talk about, but I don't know. I guess until I remember it, I'll just say as usual, if there's anything else I feel I need to add, I'll put it in the comments. Um, well, I mean, it also doesn't help that this movie doesn't cover Return of the King. Yeah, I'm going off on a lot of tangents here. I'm sorry. I mean, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to like Lord of the Rings, but so yeah, this I might be a little over my head when I try to review anything Lord of the Rings related, but you know, but yeah, this movie only covers Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers. Yeah, it ends after Helm's Deep, just like Two Towers did. And yeah, the story is basically finished by the Rankin Bass movie that came out a year later. And that's a TV movie, so I won't be reviewing it, but I will probably watch it just so I can say I've finished this story. I did watch the Rankin Bass Hobbit movie, which was also made for TV, so. And yeah, that movie was alright. I mean, it's, yeah, this movie was definitely a fair bit better than that, but still. I did also watch Return of the King once years ago when it aired like on Cartoon Network. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember liking it fine. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. But yeah, again, if there's anything else I feel I need to add, I'll put it in the comments. I know there's quite a bit to talk about when it comes to anything Lord of the Rings related. So yeah, there might be something that I put in the comments, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with this movie that I might forget because, I'm going off on so many tangents. But yeah, until then, I'll just go ahead and give this movie a 7 out of 10. And yeah, if you're interested, I would definitely say check it out. Decide for yourself how much you like it. I mean, I definitely won't say it compares with the Peter Jackson movie, but it's still impressive in its own right. Bakshi did what he could to, take this story that for years people said was unadaptable. They said it was impossible to adapt it to a movie, at least a live action one. But at the very least, he pulled off animation. But yeah, I guess I can't really think of anything else to say for now. But yeah, again, I'll probably put something in the comments because I'm sure there's something I forgot to talk about. But yeah, until then, I'll go ahead and leave it at that for now. Mash it and smash it, signing off.